Hi, this is Eric from Cafe Watercolor. Welcome to another painting demo. For this video, I want to start by sharing the final result of the painting so you can see what I've done before I start to show you the whole process from the white paper. And I also want to share with you what I like and what I don't like about my own painting. So I'm going to roast myself a little bit, but we always learn something from every single painting, even though, we can make some mistake and fail a little bit. Anyways, so this is the painting, and on the right and the left is the photo reference. The photo is not taken by me, it's by my friend, and she sent me this photo. She told me that this is her favorite sunset spot when she was a student, so there's some nostalgic element into this painting. Basically what captured me the most is definitely the sun, the warm sun glow there, and that's something that I want to capture. And for that, I think I definitely capture that warm glow here, right? And the overall warmth of the sky, and the overall just like very simple sunset look and feel. Something that I told you guys before, and I will say it again, watercolor is not very a easy medium when it comes to wanting to paint something with a lot of contrast. Like if you look at a photo, if you squint your eyes, all the values down here pretty much all blend together because the camera is favoring the exposure for the bright spot, the bright area. So everything else is very, very dark. So I try to make it darker here, but it can only go so dark. If you want everywhere to be like this dark, it's just not going to work that well, right? And it's going to get very messy because you need to paint a lot of layers or have a lot of dry brush on top, because the more water you put in, the lighter it's going to become. So that's the one of the downside. I'm using watercolor to paint this scenery. That being said, I do very enjoy the outcome. I do think I successfully kind of capture the glow of this bright sunlight, glow rim around it, the warmth of the sunlight. I definitely capture that. One thing I do regret is that you can zoom it in, you can kind of see, oops, a little bit too close. You can kind of see there's a little bit of fuzziness here around some of these elements. Yeah, it is not as clean looking, and that is because towards the end of the painting, I will show you in the process, I feel like the sky is still too bright. I want this to feel brighter, but it's already white paper. So in order to make the sun feel brighter, I need to darken the sky a little bit. So I did a glaze after I paint all the light post and the background and everything in the crane. So the glaze, the watery glaze kind of melts a little bit of paint and make the edge a little bit fuzzy. So it's not as clean as it should be. So just a lesson for myself, unless I'm absolutely sure that everything in the back layer is looking good, it's looking exactly how I want it, I shouldn't start painting some of the darker element in the front, right? So in that case, if I just did the glaze beforehand and paint, and then after it's dry, paint the darker elements like the lamppost and the sign and stuff, those darker elements, then I probably won't have that kind of problem. It will look cleaner. But it's pretty minor. I still call this painting a success in my opinion. And of course, there's always something you can learn from every single painting. There's always something you can learn to do better as well. And I definitely want to keep improving. So every single painting, even though this is like a small one, it's like 10 by 7, even a small painting like that, I still learn some valuable lessons from it. So without further ado, let's go into the painting process. Alright, so we start off by doing a very simple drawing. This is a very small paper. You can judge it by the size of my hand. I don't have a giant hand, so this paper is small, about 10 by 7. And the reason I use a very small paper is because this is a recorded demo for Patreon. And in my Patreon, membership, I do this twice a month, just a recorded demo from beginning to finish. I don't speed up anything, and I will talk while I'm doing it so you can see the whole process. So I usually try not to do a painting that takes a very, very long time. This painting from start to finish took about 1 hour in real time, so I usually try not to go over 2 hours is the maximum, but usually stay within an hour and a half. Otherwise, I don't think anyone has the patience to watch it from start to finish. So as you can see, very simple drawing. I didn't even do a lot of detail for the distant cars because they are just going to be very suggestive with visual languages. And I put it a little bit of masking fluid for the sunspot. I have to preserve the white for that area because that is the lightest, brightest part of the painting. So start off by doing the sky. So for the sky, I use mostly cerulean blue on the top, and as I transition down to the horizon, I start to use Handsome Yellow Deep and then orange. And between the blue and the yellow, I try to add a little bit of orange or a little bit of alizarin crimson just to avoid changing color into sort of green. So it gets warmer and hotter as it reaches the horizon, because there's more haze and only the red light is passing through. And I continue to wash down, and I try to make it a little bit darker than usual because there's not a lot of light value under the sky. The sun is very low, so actually the street and the car, they didn't hit by direct sunlight. They're mostly the ambient light and the skylight. So I start to paint the background building. It's not completely dry yet, so I blow it dry just so that I don't have to wait for it to be completely dry. I can move on. So the background buildings, they are very, very simple. They're just flat shape essentially because they're so far away. I did add some warm color as it's closer to the sun, but I pretty much neglect all of the detail that you can see from the photo. If you zoom in on the photo, you can start seeing details on the far distant buildings, but you really don't need to put it. First of all, it's a small painting. Second, if you put too much detail in the background, you actually start to flatten things. So keep the background simple. And then this is another layer, so I just paint the color down. I start to preserve a little bit of random highlights, especially on the freeway. I want to preserve some highlight that suggests they're cars. So the top of the car has a little bit of the light. It's not exactly highlight because compared with the sun, there's nowhere as near as bright as the sun itself in the painting. So that's why I did a much darker wash in the beginning. But you can see it's still lightened up quite a bit after it's dry. And that's the thing about watercolor, especially when you use a lot of water to do a wash. It can look dark in the beginning, but as the wash is dry, it starts to become much lighter. So that is something that I have to take into account. So now, first wash is done, second wash is done. There are some light on the freeway that suggests cars. They're not all looking very accurate and stuff, but that doesn't really matter. They are just visual languages, so if they communicate cars, then it is good. And this is the part that I regret a little bit because I go ahead and paint the crane and everything. But if I step back a little bit and look at the sky, it is not dark enough. And at that moment, I would have do a glaze on top of it. And while there's still not a lot of dark paint to melt, the glaze will come out a lot cleaner. But then I start to go ahead and paint the dark value, and it will be a lot more difficult to glaze on top while keeping it clean. So you can see that the cranes in the back and the light post, they are looking very nice and clean right now. But I think I jumped ahead a little bit too early to paint those. They should be the finishing touches. But moving on, I start to paint the car, just giving some very simple shape. And you really just need a dark shape and light shape to make it look like cars, especially in the distance. So for this sort of very quick small paintings, you're really just relying on visual languages to communicate with the viewer what they're seeing. So in this case, you see buildings in the back, you see 2 roads, 2 freeways, and you can pretty much guess that what's on the freeway are the cars. So again, a loose painting is about how well you paint your visual languages. Sometimes you don't need to say too much. You can just indicate, hint a little bit for the viewer to complete this picture for you. And here I use a little bit of white gouache and a bit of opaque watercolor called Jaune Brilliant. I use those for the headlight and to add a little bit of the light back. So I blow the painting dry, preparing for the glazing. So as soon as I put this deep orange glaze on top, you can tell the sky start to look a lot darker and richer, and the sun start to look brighter. So I'm not regretting doing a glaze on top, but I am sort of regretting that I didn't do that earlier, and I paint the lamppost and stuff a little bit too early. So that I start to smear the paint a little bit. So I paint those details back. And I feel like the freeway itself is also a bit too bright, so I want to darken it by glazing it again. So glazing work, it's just that I should have done that a bit earlier before I paint the dark. But there's always something you can learn from each painting, so I learned my lesson. And hopefully it will contribute to my future paintings. So I hope you enjoy this painting process, and let me know down below if you enjoy me talking about my own painting before I show you the whole process. And if that's something that you enjoy, I will definitely incorporate that in my future video. I hope you guys have a wonderful Memorial weekend, and I will see you guys next time. God bless. Bye.